Hello everyone, my name is Matan Azanov and welcome to my channel. I've been in the venture capital business since 2013, and since I started in my role, I've seen an increasing desire and demand to get a venture capital career. And it's easy to understand, right? You have venture capital is broken into the mainstream with shows like Silicon Valley, showing how exciting and fun it is to build a startup and of course to invest in a startup. And reality TV shows like Shark Tank, where you have ambitious, smart entrepreneurs coming to the panel of sharks and pitching their idea for an investment. And what do the sharks do? They sit back, they hear the pitches, they criticize and judge and make a deal or not. And what sounds more fun than that? You get to go participate and hear amazing pitches and invest and then benefit from the growth of all these great companies. That sounds like a lot of fun. So it's easy to understand. And I see this in my career. There's not a week that goes by without several ambitious, smart, young people reaching out to me and asking how do they break into venture capital. They're willing to do anything. They'll work for free, they'll do research, they'll do whatever is necessary to break in because it seems like such a desirable career to get into. And it's true, it is a very awesome career to have. A few actual reasons, aside from the hyper romanticized versions you'll find on TV, is that the job is primarily to go out there and find the most innovative, ambitious, and smart people and back them financially. I don't think there's any other career out there like that. This is it. It's venture capital. It's going out there and finding the next Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk and then giving them money and being a partner in their business. What could be more fun than that? And similar to that, you get to be at the forefront of innovation. You get to go out there and your job is to go find what is going to be the next big thing, the next billion-dollar idea, the next innovation. How do we take humanity forward and make people live better, healthier, and more prosperous lives? And it's your job to judge and to figure out which entrepreneur has it right and then go and back them financially and join them as a partner in their business. That's really fun if you're into that kind of thing. And of course, the job itself is dynamic. There is never a dull moment if you're in venture capital. As an analyst, maybe your role is much more narrow, but as you progress in your career, as through an associate and principal VP, whatever they call it these days, through a managing director, there is no day that's the same. Some days I'm at a board meeting, other days I'm doing full research on a company we're dealing with. Other days I'm at an event. Every day is different because the role itself requires you to be a dynamic person. You have to negotiate deals. You have to go out there and find companies and build relationships. You have to do research and learn all the time. And of course, you're helping these companies grow and you have to support them in their growth. So you're actively participating in the growth of multiple companies at the same time. There is never a dull moment in this business. And related to that is you learn a lot. Part of your job is to constantly learn, not only companies in your portfolio and making sure you're up to date with what's going on in their industry, what innovations are happening, what their competitors are doing, but every entrepreneur that comes to you is an opportunity to learn more about why they see the world differently, what innovation that they have, and how they perceive the world in such a way that they believe they can build a multi-billion-dollar business. It forces you to put on a different hat every day and say to yourself, well, they see the world in a certain particular way. What do they know that I don't know? And how do I figure out if they're right or wrong? That forces you to learn about innovations all the time and new markets and new ideas and how people think and how people work. It's really fun if you're into learning. If you're not into learning, it could be a very, very boring job and it could be torture. But if you love learning, it's a very amazing role to have. It's a very amazing career to have. And of course, the money. People correctly assume that venture capitalists are well paid, and they are. The average venture capital salary is going to be much higher than the average in the general population. However, one should temper their expectations. Most VCs, relative to their counterparts in private equity or even investment banking, will make less money, but you can still make a lot of money. You're talking about multi-six-figure salaries for people that with a couple of years of experience. And of course, if you have your own fund or you get part of the profits in the fund through what is called carried interest, you can actually make quite a lot of money. And it's pretty normal for VCs to make millions of dollars. Some have even made hundreds of millions and billions of dollars if they're very successful. Those, of course, are the top tier, but money certainly plays a role in people's desires to get into venture capital, and it's well-founded. And because it's such a desirable role, that means the demand to get in is very high. So the perception that breaking into venture capital is notoriously difficult is true. It's very difficult because the demand is so high and the supply is so low. But why is that? Well, the first thing is that there are just very few venture capital funds out there. Now, in the US, the latest data shows that there's about 4,300 active VC funds, and the median amount of employees at each fund is about 6. That makes roughly 27,000 total roles in the US, which is tiny. It's a fraction of what you'll have in PE. And to give even some context, banking, commercial banking, the amount amount of jobs in that industry alone is over 2 million. So you can see relative to just banking itself, venture capital is something like 3%. There are some sources that put the amount of roles in venture capital higher than 27,000. The highest I've seen is about 50,000, but it's not going to be more than that. So you're talking about a very, very tiny industry. But it doesn't stop there. The fact that there's 50,000 or 25,000 roles or somewhere in between roles in venture capital doesn't mean that all those are skewed towards entry level like you would expect in any other industry. For example, in banking, if you have 2 million roles, you could assume maybe 10% is held by senior people, and then the rest, as you go down the pyramid, the more junior positions have many more roles. In venture capital, it's the opposite. You can have a lot of senior roles for few junior roles. That's because in venture capital, you have to have a lot of experience, and that's because in venture capital, money scales better than labor. So with a couple of senior people in a venture fund, you can deploy $50 million over the course of a few years. And to deploy the next $50 million, let's say if you have a $100 million fund, you can do that maybe with an additional 1 or 2 junior roles. And let's say you double that to $200 million. Maybe you need another one person. So you can have a venture firm with $300 million to deploy over 5 years with maybe 3 or 4 senior roles and maybe the equivalent amount of junior roles. And that's pretty normal. And there's an incentive in venture funds not to raise a fund that's too large because of something called the law of large numbers. There's a lot of data out there suggesting that the larger the venture fund, the much harder it is to develop good returns. And we're not going to get into that today. That's a topic for another video. But the incentive for VCs is to stay small, stay lean, make investments. You can write a $1 million check with just as much work as you can write a $10 million check. Venture capital firms are designed to be small, not just in the amount of employees that they have, but the amount of capital that they seek to deploy. And that's why there are so few out there and why there's so few full-time positions in venture capital. So that seems very bleak. How do you break in? Now, the first thing is you have to really want it. And this seems obvious, but you have to actually want to get into it. I know a lot of people that have come to me that think they want to get into venture capital, but they just think it's sexy and therefore they want to do it because it's much better than the career they have. But you actually have to be quite passionate about entrepreneurship, innovation, supporting startups, and the like. If, for example, you're not proactively going to events today before you try to get a career in venture capital, are you really that interested? If you're not reading up on startup news today, do you really want to do this full time? It's something that you have to be passionate about, and that passion will seep through in everything you do in your life. The best people I know that have gone to venture capital were doing effectively what a venture capitalist does before having the role in venture capital. They go to startup events, they learn up on all the innovations, they try to do deals, they're doing the role of a venture capitalist, but they don't have a full-time role. And once those roles come up, they already know all the players. So they just go to them and they say, well, I see you're hiring for this particular job. I'm already doing it. Here's a couple of deals I'm working on. Hey, why don't we work together? But if we wanted to take a more structured approach to breaking into venture capital, what do you do and what are the routes to do it? So there are 3 routes to break into venture capital that I know of. The first is the career route. And that means you have to go to a top university undergrad program and maybe an MBA. That means in the US, an Ivy League or something equivalent in the US or elsewhere. Get grades, go do an internship at a top tier firm, leverage that into a job at a top tier investment bank, private equity, management consulting firm, do that for a couple of years, and then get into venture capital. That's the first route, and that's the typical finance career route. The other route, which is becoming more popular, is the startup route. And that can come in a couple of different ways. One, you have a skill set, like you have a medical degree or biology degree or something, and you've used that in the real world, meaning you're a doctor or you were an executive at a startup, and you have a skill set that a venture capital firm will need if they do investments in that space. For example, if I'm a VC fund and I'm investing in medical innovations, it makes sense for me to hire someone that's an MD or a doctor that can help me do diligence on the companies I'm looking to invest in. And that skill set is quite rare. It's rare enough that that skill set alone will be valuable on my team. And of course, the last route and the easiest route, depending on how you look at it, is the money route. Be rich and then go invest in companies directly and then leverage that track record of success and the money you've made, of course, into a formal fund. Of course, that formal fund will have to include your own capital, but I've seen plenty of situations where wealthy people have invested their own capital and then leveraged their good track record to raise capital from third parties, and then they have a fund. And those are the 3 ways to break into venture capital. And my advice to you, act as if you're ready in the venture capital industry. Go out to events. Meet people, meet entrepreneurs and venture capitalists, learn about innovation, try to help startups grow, try to even do a deal. I know it's hard, but actually get involved, become an advisor, develop a skill set. By the time that you're ready to go out there and find a role, your resume will be filled with great experiences that will make you stand apart. And you will already know a lot of the players in the industry. And of course, reach out to people like me and to other VCs in the industry. Most are very responsive and would love to help you if you approach them the right way. But one thing that comes through the most is the actual desire and passion to do this job. If it's just about money or just about having a dynamic career, that's not going to cut it in most cases. You actually have to love it and desire helping startups and supporting innovation. And that's it for today. Thank you for listening. If you like this type of content, like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.